Hello, my name is Allison Michelle Mulmer, and today I'll be sharing my research project for Political Science 3000 titled Polarized Perceptions: How Division Shapes Distrust in the U.S. Elections. This presentation investigates how political division, especially partisan identity and perceived polarization, affects people's confidence in the integrity of elections. In an era where misinformation is rampant and electoral trust is increasingly partisan, it's important to understand what drives public skepticism and how it's evolving. Public trust in U.S. elections is no longer something we can take for granted. After the 2020 presidential election, a growing number of Americans, especially those aligned with one political party, have expressed doubt in the legitimacy of election outcomes. These doubts are not just ideological, they're fueled by media, peer networks, and perceived structural unfairness. My study asks, what are the primary drivers of election-related distrust? And more specifically, how much does political polarization influence these concerns? The existing research shows that both institutional and psychological factors affect trust in elections. On one hand, policy-based concerns like voter ID laws or vote by mail are often debated as fairness issues. On the other, research shows that personal feelings of exclusion or betrayal, especially among conservatives post-2020, can intensify distrust. Scholars like Gronke and Ackelson, I do not know how to pronounce their name, so I'm sorry, I absolutely botched it, argue that the media's framing of voter fraud, often lacking empirical backing, has had a measurable impact on belief systems. Another consistent finding, Republicans tend to exhibit higher levels of mistrust than Democrats, regardless of the specific election or issue at hand. For this study, I used data from a national political survey that includes variables on perceived polarization, party identification, and concerns about election security. My dependent variable is concern about election fraud, measured on a 5-point Likert scale. The main independent variable is perceived political polarization, categorized as low, medium, or high. I also included party identification as a control, since we know that party shapes political interpretation. The methodology includes both bivariate and multivariate analysis, allowing me to explore relationships and test statistical significance. I developed three main hypotheses. Hypothesis 1 is individuals identifying as Republicans will show significantly more concern about election fraud than Democrats or independents. Hypothesis 2, individuals who perceive higher levels of political polarization will report more concern regardless of party. Hypothesis 3, even when controlling for party ID, perceived polarization will remain a strong predictor. These hypotheses aim to test whether distrust is more about institutional affiliation or emotional/political climate. This bivariate analysis reveals a statistically significant link between party affiliation and election fraud concern. Republicans had the highest level of concern at 58.9%, while independents reported 27.4%, and Democrats just 9.7%. The chi-square value is 98.124 with a p-value of less than 0.001. This confirms that the differences are not due to chance. It strongly supports hypothesis 1, showing that Republicans are far more likely to distrust the system. Next, I looked at concern levels based on perceived polarization. Respondents who saw the political climate as highly polarized showed 78% concern. This dropped to 52% for those who saw medium polarization and just 30% for those who saw low polarization. This pattern supports hypothesis 2, showing that even beyond party, showing that, beyond party identification, what am I trying to say? Beyond party identification, it shows how divided people think the country is, which can heighten election-related anxiety. These slides tie together the two bivariate findings. Whether we look at party or polarization, the pattern is clear. Both variables are significantly associated with increased concerns. Republicans and those perceived more division in society Republicans and those perceiving more division in society show the most distrust. What this tells us is that both identity and perception play strong roles in shaping public opinion. To dig deeper, I used binary logistic regression to test how party and polarization work together. The model was statistically significant with the chi-square of 98.124 and an Albuquerque R-squared of 0.109, meaning it explains about 11% of the variation in concern. Although the model didn't fully converge, the coefficients were meaningful. Democrats were 86% likely than Republicans to express concern, and independents were 71% less likely. Even the something else category was significantly less concern than Republicans. What this means is that the party affiliation remains the strongest predictor of concern, even when accounting for perceived polarization. Hypothesis 2 is fully supported here, and while I couldn't isolate polarization due to model limits, the results still reflected the partisan divide. This also points to the need for more complex models, potentially involving media exposure and emotional responses to political information. To summarize the multivariate results, party ID is still the most powerful predictor. The sharp contrast between Republican concern and that of other groups shows that mistrust is being driven more by identity and ideology than structural issues. This supports the theory that we are in a post-fact environment where belief shapes reality more than facts do. In conclusion, the study shows that concern about election fraud is not evenly distributed. It's highly partisan and strongly influenced by perceived political division. While party affiliation dominated the results, perceived polarization also played a significant role. In the future, I'd like to add media consumption and emotional triggers as variables, particularly how anger and fear influence distrust. This could be part of a broader psychological/political model for understanding electoral attitudes. These are my primary sources. I use survey data from 538, ISPO, Selection Tracking Study, and built my literature review from political science journals, including American Politics Research and Political Behavior. All data was cited using APA format. Thank you so much for listening, and I am willing to answer any questions that you may have.